Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 128 of the Terminal City FC podcast. Yeah, no, actually, 128. And apologies, the last episode wasn't on Spotify and all the audio streaming stuff last week because we had technical issues with StreamYard. It's all fixed. This should be out on the audio feed if you're listening. So apologies for last week. And no, I'm not. Josh Gray not joined alongside Nathan Durek as per usual. He's busy moving to a new house, so best of luck to him. But joining me is someone who watches more soccer than me and Nathan combined. Alexandre Gangue-Ruzic of One Soccer, Third Sub, CPL, Third Sub Podcast, and Northern Football. Thanks for joining me, man.
Yeah, my pleasure, Josh. Always good to hop on and chat. Nice to. It's been a few weeks because we haven't had any home Whitecaps games. Always like to stop by and say what's up to you and Nathan and chat everything's going on. But hey, we got this weekend, right? Caps are finally back, so that'll be nice.
Yep, Caps will be back this weekend, and yeah, let's start with the Caps. Last week, a 1-1 draw in New Jersey against the New York Red Bulls. Obviously, the big story is Brian White breaking Camilo's record for the MLS era goal record, but overall, the game could have gone worse for the Whitecaps, but it's a point that they'd be pretty satisfied to take.
Yeah, point on the road, right? It's those can be crucial in MLS. I guess what's nice when you're playing an interconference game like that against an Eastern team, you can only gain points. You're not losing ones to teams directly behind you, right? Like that's why that Galaxy loss maybe hurt a little more from the Whitecaps' perspective, is that you're not just losing 3 points, you're giving them right to a team you're competing with at the top of the West. The fact they went up to the Red Bulls, got a point, could have got more, yes, but at the end of the day, these are the sorts of road points you can never turn your nose up, especially now 4 road games, 3 wins, 1 draw. Like what happened to this team on the road? What happened to those those battles they had last year just to get as many any wins? I think now if they win their next road game, that already bests their win total from last year, matches it if I'm not mistaken. So it's a good point on the road against a good team. You take those to the bank at the end of the year.
Yeah, I agree. Like 3 wins, a draw on the road. If you told me that at the end of this beginning of the season, rather, I wouldn't have believed you. But again, a good point on the road by the Whitecaps. And at this point, take as many points as you can, given the fact that the playoff race by summer and fall will be a very tight one. But let's talk more about the game in general. I mean, the Red Bulls, their game plan was pretty much high press, high intensity. First minute, the Whitecaps saw that. And Red Bulls could have scored first if not for Yohei Takaoka making 2 saves off Lewis Morgan.
Those were some big stops. I mean, the game was so open to begin. I couldn't believe my eyes. It felt like I was watching just like a sprint race of just guys going back and forth and back and forth. And the Whitecaps don't mind playing that way, but I think the Red Bulls are maybe one of the few teams in the league where you don't want to kind of play that way. And they showed why with that Morgan chance. They just carved right through. He ends up getting a great shot, but that's the strength of Yohei Takaoka. I know there's been a lot made of some of his weaknesses, some of his shortcomings. You kind of saw it later in the game, of course, but that's the strength of him. He's an excellent shot stopper. He seems to know when to come off his line, when to make himself big, and he has the reflexes. I mean, that second save he made was a desperate one, but that's sometimes what top goalkeepers do. They make saves they're not supposed to make, and I think that was a huge moment because early in the game, you go down on the road, your game plan can get thrown completely out the window. And I think that sequence of stops certainly, I think, helped the Whitecaps because it kind of gave confidence. And I mean, look, they opened the scoring not long after. So that's always a good sign, too.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the Whitecaps have opened the scoring more often than not this season. Don't know the exact number, but that's also good to see. I mean, the way it was built up from Ryan Raposo just bringing that ball in, and Brian White just doing what he does best, poaching, finding himself in that right area, and scoring a big goal, big for him, as we've already mentioned, and just overall well taken goal by the Whitecaps on the transition.
It was a beautiful goal. I was quite impressed. Just the sequence of passing that ball into Pedro Vite. I think his awareness there was quite impressive. Looked like he could have lined up to take a shot. He waits. Ryan Raposo makes that overlap. That's what you get with Ryan Raposo. He wants to drive forward. He wants to get in the box. He takes the ball. Smart decision, lays it off, and that's sort of bread and butter Brian White finish, right? He loves those one-touch finishes. It's funny. It seems like he can whip these balls into the box. He's scoring with his hip. He's scoring with whatever. He likes that sort of one-touch finish, maybe more so than breakaways or when he has time to think. And that's the kind of instincts he has as a number 9. He just wants to make those runs and finish them off. Nice little back heel too. I didn't know he had that in the arsenal, but pretty cool way to break the record.
Yeah, and I mean, it's hard to believe that it's only been 3 years. Again, he's been the Whitecaps, and he had to do it against his former team, in front of his friends and family, in his home state. Like, we couldn't have written a better script for Brian White to break the record. And again, that play by Ryan Raposo, that's another reason why I rate him so much, because he really knows how to put a ball in the box. Yeah, he has his issues, especially defensively, but that's what he can do. He can cut in and put a ball in the box.
Well, that's it. Ryan Raposo, he generates offense. It's something where sometimes it isn't the most conventional, right? He's not the quickest guy at times, not the biggest guy either, but he clearly has a good brain for it. I like the runs he makes, the way he positions himself, and the ball seems to find him, and that's always the trademark of good offensive players, right? Sometimes it isn't always the most pretty or the most effective. But if you know how to get the ball in dangerous areas and then turn them into goals and assists, I mean, he has 2 goals, 3 assists now already in this season, and he's not even been a regular starter. He's been bouncing in and out the lineup with all the wing back depth that the Whitecaps have found. It shows that Ryan Raposo can generate offense, and I think that's something where that's a fit worth looking at, especially seen on the goal. Again, he provided that sort of service for Brian White, and it was the perfect Brian White goal. I think that's probably what he would have wanted, right? To score early, to get it out the way, not if it drags on a few games, people start asking, "Oh, you ever going to break the record?" No, he just gets it done, gets the business done efficiently in front of his friends and family against his old club. Like, it was such a perfect script. Like, you could almost laugh when it went in. Like, oh yeah, of course he did. You would have put, you almost put money on it before the game that he knew he wanted to. He wanted to do it early, and Raposo helped him do that in a nice way.
Yeah, and I don't think White had this many goals as he did last year, because remember, around this time last year, he couldn't buy one. And now I think he has 4 now. And that's pretty good. And he's climbing up the Whitecaps goal totals. And speaking of strikers, Lewis Morgan, we mentioned him. He got the tying goal. And you wrote about this. You and Sam Rowan wrote about this for a third sub. It exposed Takaoka's fatal flaw.
Oof, that's a good way to put it. It's, again, like I mentioned earlier. Yeah, he giveth and taketh away. I guess, in a sense, if we're going to use that expression, like the shot stopping, it can be on point, but the cross, wide balls into the area coming off of his line, he just never looks comfortable doing so. And I think this is a perfect example. It's a pretty routine whipped ball in the box. It is a good ball, I must say. Like, that's the kind of area that you want to put it in, like not too high, kind of just throw it in and see what happens. And Takaoka kind of got caught in no man's land, really. Like, he didn't look like if you want to come out and claim it or punch it or tip it away, kind of did all 3 at once. And that's the worst thing you can do in those sorts of scenarios. If you're a goalkeeper, you're on your line, a dangerous ball is coming in the near post, you have to be decisive. If you're going to go out and punch it, go out, fists up, go for it. Make the risk. If you're going to catch it, same thing. If you want to stay on your line, you're almost better off there, because if the ball gets through, at least you have the time to react to make the save. But sometimes it feels like Takaoka, he's very reactive in the moment. And like I mentioned, that's a good skill of his in other instances, like that save earlier on in the game. There's a few other he's made this year, really good reactive saves. He knows how to turn these moments where it seems like he's down and out and make the stop. But when you're coming off your line, when you're dealing with those cross balls, you need to be decisive. And I don't know if that'll be something that he can find a way to correct, because that just seems like it's an instinct thing. It's something that even if you coach, it might take a while to get out. And obviously, it's been something that's been there since last year. But that's a key moment that ended up hurting the Whitecaps because it felt like they're in relative control. Like the Red Bulls weren't threatening them with anything dangerous, and then Takaoka kind of gives Lewis Morgan a free chance at the back post. He wasn't going to miss it, and it kind of turned that 1-0 game back into something where everything was to play for.
Yeah, and I think Takaoka should have had that one because he looked pretty hesitant trying to deflect that ball away, and then Lewis Morgan was left wide open. Like that's the one of the easiest goals he'll ever score in his career. If he missed that, that would be a miss. Would have been a miss for the ages, and but it doesn't really take away how good of a game Takaoka had. But I'm glad you and Sam pointed that out because now I know I'm not the only one who gets nervous when Takaoka's near a cross. And but there's nothing really the guy can do. I mean, he can work on it, but sometimes those high crosses, especially given he's only 5'11", can't really, I mean, fault him for that. It's not like he can grow in a few months. But overall, decent game from Takaoka, and the Whitecaps overall did a good job handling the Red Bulls' high intense press. But Emil Forsberg, like what a player! Like he carved the Whitecaps deep midfield apart, especially in that second half. And there's a reason why they said on the broadcast, best signing the Red Bulls had since Thierry Henry.
I think that's pretty accurate, to be honest. Like he's genuinely a different class of player. That's no doubt at all. The way he just glides on the ball. I've watched a few Red Bulls game earlier this year, so I've seen it, but just to watch it again and because it'd been a few weeks, he also dealt with an injury or something that or some absences. Like he is just a marvel to watch. What I like about him is the spaces, right? He occupies. That's always the skill on the ball is obvious, right? This is a guy who's played big minutes for Leipzig, Swedish national team, etc. The talent's there, but it's just so fascinating to watch the movement, the delivery too. Like every cross he put in is dangerous. There's never, oh, he misses one, he misses. No, every bit of service that comes off that right foot of his is quality. He seemed like he constantly kept pulling up in dangerous positions. He also is the kind of player that really tests the Whitecaps zonal marking system because, of course, the zonal marking, it's about defending the team, defending the space. But, you get nervous when you see a guy like that dribbling at you. You beat some midfield line. You're like, do we step? Do we overreact? Do we overcorrect? Because he can easily take you out with one good pass, one good dribble. I think he's a huge part of that Red Bull system in possession. And I think it's, the Whitecaps can be happy that they didn't let anything in open play, right? The goal comes off a corner, comes off a bit of an error. The fact they kept Forsberg off the board in open play is a huge sign because, man, it felt like any time he got into space, he was dangerous, and that's a credit to his skill and his ability to find space.
Yeah, every time he had the ball, it looked like the Red Bulls would create a scoring chance, but thankfully for the Whitecaps, they would end up missing the net or have the shot blocked. And Sebastian Berhalter did okay filling in for Andres Kubas, but you could tell that Kubas was missed and did not play, obviously, because of suspension. And nothing against the guy, but I get he wanted to take the initiative, but Gall should have taken those free kicks because both of those should have not hit the wall.
That's it. That's the, I guess, unfortunate thing for Sebastian Berhalter first in terms of Andres Kubas, that he's not Andres Kubas. And that's not a diss to Berhalter because there
No,
aren't many
no.
number sixes in the league that are Andres Kubas. And no matter when he's not in the lineup for whatever reason, it's felt. But also to give Berhalter credit, I thought he put in a solid game because this wasn't one where you could have easily been like, oh, I feel Kubas isn't there. And that it wasn't so much the case in this game. I think he would have helped, no doubt, especially against a guy like Forsberg. I'm sure he would have had a few tackles that would have maybe, hampered his ability to run all over the Whitecaps in transition. But Berhalter did his job, no doubt, and that's all you can ask from him. I think that's a huge improvement and why he's grown so much over the last 2 years. You can throw him in big games. He doesn't look phased. But yeah, no, in terms of the set pieces, is it just me, or it feels like the Whitecaps have just been off in set pieces? Like they haven't really hit their rhythm. Even Ryan Gauld, right? Like his delivery is usually so good on corners. He hasn't been hitting the mark as much as usual, and maybe that's partly why he didn't take the free kicks. Maybe it's just a
maybe.
confidence thing right now, right? Because that's the one thing with those free kicks. It often comes down to who's feeling it in training. I know I've seen and heard that Sebastian Berhalter actually does strike a ball very well, and he's one of the best takers. But also, ideally, like you mentioned, if a guy like Ryan Gauld is confident, you'd think he wants that, steps up the same way he takes penalties, right? Like he easily
Right.
could be giving away those penalties, but he takes those. Maybe it's a bit of a confidence thing, but I don't know. I don't know if I am imagining things, but it does feel like set piece delivery as a whole hasn't been as sharp, other than maybe when Ranko Veselinovic scored against TFC. Like there haven't been a whole lot of good set piece delivery, which is a shame because the Whitecaps kind of have the weapons to be good at delivering them and also finishing them.
Yeah, and Brian White did score off a corner against Galaxy. But other than that, they haven't been, you're right, haven't been as dangerous, but I think it will come. And again, nothing against Berhalter. He has proven he can shoot the ball. Like, I think both of his goals last year were both bangers from outside the box. So I'm sure things will come for him. He's still, 22, 23? And this is a player that's only going to get better as time goes on. And should also shout out Veselinovic and Blackman for, especially in that first half, they were everywhere in their own box, just making the clearances, making those blocks. Like that's what they do, and that's why these two, I think, are one of the better center back duos in MLS.
I think it was a great game, and I found it interesting. I saw some rumblings online. Of course, a game like this, Red Bulls 4:30 kick. This is the game for everyone around MLS to discover what we've already been seeing about the Whitecaps. We're out here going to the games and watching at 7:30 Pacific time. People are realizing, oh, okay, like the Whitecaps defense, it's legit, it's tough. I think in this game as well, they gave up nothing again, like we mentioned earlier, to the Red Bulls in open play. And Veselinovic, Blackman, that third man today, Laborda. We've seen Utvik slot in. They've got a good group of center backs who all bring different skills. And yeah, when Veselinovic and Blackman, this is like the perfect game you want from them. No conceptual errors, as Vanni Sartini continues to say, that have hurt them in past games. Again, the one goal they give up, a set piece, a bit of goalkeeping error, nothing they can really do about that. But they were so solid. Like the amount of times Blackman made sure to stop his 1v1s, make sure no one got in behind, held his position. Ditto with Ranko. When they're on, when they're clicking, when they're comfortable in the zone system, they can be so dangerous. And I think it's exciting too because a guy like Laborda steps in, solid game, does his job. Utvik drops out. Utvik's been so good in the two starts he's gotten. Now the Whitecaps legitimately have a center back battle going on too, which is nice. That okay, if Blackman slips, Utvik slots right. If Laborda slips, Utvik can fill in for him. I'm sure if Veselinovic slips, Utvik could probably do a job in the middle as well. And that was a huge thing last year. It felt like last year was Blackman and Veselinovic were almost written in pen every week in the team sheet, and it was figuring out who the heck played alongside them. If it was Javain Brown, if it was Laborda, if it was Martin sometimes playing in the back three. Whereas now I think Vanni has four good options for the three center back spots, and it's giving him a little flexibility that's getting the most out of Blackman, right? Like he had that dip a few
Right.
weeks ago, sits on the bench, thinks about it, comes in, and has been rock solid ever since. And that's the sort of response you want from a guy like that.
Yeah, Nathan and I talked about it over the past few weeks that it's good for Vanny to have depth at center back, and we talked about it endlessly last year that the Whitecaps need another center back, they need another center back, and thankfully they got Utvik and that Bilal Halbouni kid, which we haven't seen yet, and hopefully we will since Canchamp is just around the corner. But yeah, overall decent game from the back line, and these two, Blackman and Veselinovic especially, like they get the zonal marking system. They just did their job. And Whitecaps, let's not forget, we're up by a man with about 10, 15 minutes left in the game because Noah Ellie decided to play basketball. I don't know, maybe he was hyped about the Knicks. I'm like, that was just a clear handball. No arguments from anyone about that. But unfortunately, they lacked the killer instinct being up a man. And maybe it was too little too late, but they went all out, but really couldn't just generate anything on the Red Bulls goalkeeper.
Yeah, I was a bit surprised by that because I felt like the red card was easily a sign of, oh, okay, like the game's here for the taking. Before that, they were playing for the draw. They made some very defensive substitutions, bringing on Javane Brown at one point, kind of more of a defensive minded wing back. They were going for the draw, but then they get this chance. Like, yeah, you put it perfectly. Maybe, yeah, maybe he's got some of that Knicks, that Bing Bong fever. Oh, it was just such a boneheaded play. Like, it genuinely made me laugh because you rarely see something that just thoughtless and careless. Like, usually it's, oh, is it a red? Is it a not? It was just like the most clear red ever. But yeah, the game was there for the taking, and it surprised me. I think after the game, I went back and checked all the shots. The Whitecaps only had 5 shots after that red card, and none were after the 88th minute, and only 2 of them were on target. Like, it
It's
really
a lot
felt
higher
like,
than I thought.
which I know it's higher than I as well, but the fact that there was 7 minutes of added time, so it essentially means the last 9 minutes of the game, up a man, they didn't get a single shot. It just felt like they were comfortable for the draw, and I get it. The one risk is even if there's 10 players on the field, you can still get hurt if you overcommit late, especially because the Red Bulls red card did come in the 75th. If it's the 35th, it's a whole different story. They're going to burn out by 60, by 75. 75, it is late enough in the game where you can kind of survive and not gas out by too late. But I still would have liked to see the Whitecaps go for it a bit more. They made aggressive substitutions right after bringing on a bunch of attackers, bringing Krylak late on. But I just thought maybe, sacrifice the center back at that point. The Red Bulls are, yes, they're dangerous in transition, but you don't need all three on the field. You can, or because they ended up moving Javane Brown back into the back three. They could have just easily gone with two and then the wing backs to get forward. But I get it. They didn't want to risk giving it all and looking foolish because it is a 10-man Red Bull side is still a dangerous Red Bull side, but I would have liked to at least see a bit more pressure on that goal because they didn't really do that other than a few. Like there was that Blackman set piece. There was a couple of chaotic moments in the box, but especially in added time, the fact they didn't get a single shot was a bit perplexing.
Yeah, and it would have made sense to go out. Yeah, the Red Bulls, they were very cautious. I can tell when they had the ball that the Red Bulls would just go on the counter attack, but there was that lack of the killer instinct, that lack of the final punch. But it is what it is at this point, and good to see Fafa Pico back after his back spasm. I'm not sure if he'll start on Saturday, but I guess we'll get an update today, maybe tomorrow, from the team. But overall, decent road point. Could have been more, could have been worse, but decent road point from the Whitecaps. So let's move on to next Saturday. Austin FC are in town, and they beat the LA Galaxy 2-0 at home in their last game, which was a big statement game from them.
Yeah, they've really heated up because Austin, they weren't impressing me a
Didn't
whole
have the
lot.
best start.
I'd say they wouldn't impress me a whole lot to start the year. They're kind of just, they're going through a couple poor results, but lately they've stepped up. They beat Houston, and for my money, Houston's one of the best teams in the West this year. So that was a big statement win on the road. And then this past weekend at home, they beat the LA Galaxy, 2-0. The Red Hot Galaxy felt like they hadn't been able to lose in recent weeks, and Austin just they got the job done. And I think it's a credit to Austin. This team looks, they've been solid defensively a lot more as of late. They start the year, there's some chaotic games. They've allowed 13 goals, but as of late, it's been back-to-back clean sheets. They only allowed one against St. Louis. I think they've really found a bit of structure in their game, and that's dangerous because this team has pieces who can score. You look at that lineup, like someone like Driussi on his day, he's such a menace in terms of a goal scorer, the way he finds space. They picked up O'Brien from FC Dallas. He's another dangerous piece. Rigoni as well. The Argentine winger, dangerous piece. They've got Diego Rubio up front. Like that's a pretty good front four, one that can cause problems. So when that they got that structure beneath them, you kind of see it all come together. So I'd expect a cagey match against the Whitecaps. I think they'll know what the Whitecaps can bring, and and try to be a bit more solid defensively. But they got weapons that will be able to hurt Vancouver's back line if not handled correctly.
Yeah, and Sebastian Driussi has been one of the best attacking midfielders in MLS for a while now. And Diego Rubio, good pickup from them, from Colorado. I was kind of hoping the Whitecaps would kick tires at him in the offseason for striker depth, but ho hum, he went to Austin instead and started a few games and scored last game against the Galaxies. So the Whitecaps really have to maintain that defensive structure that's really been a success for them this season. But Austin, like you said, their attack is just pretty dynamic and dangerous.
Driussi, what's unique about him, he's not your typical number 10. Every time I watch him, it kind of surprises me because you expect him to be more of that killer pass, that final action kind of guy. No, he's a shooter, but he kind of
Oh
operates
yeah, he can
more.
shoot.
He wants the space so he can shoot from distance. He can hurt you in different ways, right? He's not someone who's gonna be hitting the killer pass to a winger or something like that, like other number 10s, right? Like a Ryan
Right.
Gauld say. He wants the ball, he wants to shoot. And I think that's why Rubio has been a good addition because Rubio, you see it with Colorado. He's a target. He likes to occupy center backs up front. And that's where they hurt you. You have all of a sudden you're dealing with Rubio. Maybe he flicks it on, he occupies space. Driussi gets open in the half space in the turn. Boom, he can hurt you, right? He can score from these ridiculous angles. He's got such power on his strike. That's something to watch out for because, of course, the Whitecaps, it's zonal marking system. They're not going to be occupied with man marking Rubio, but, say Rubio, he pushes their line back, he wins a header, he forces them deep. Maybe they catch the Whitecaps with their midfield and their defensive line too split apart. Boom, that's where Driussi comes up and he can really hurt you with his shooting ability. So that's one thing I find unique about that Austin offense because you have to worry about Rubio. No doubt, you can't leave a guy like him open in the box, but that's the kind of thing Driussi wants, and he's not your typical number 10. He reminds me a lot more of an Evander, say, than like a Ryan Gauld or someone or a Carlos Gil or a bit more pass first number 10s. Driussi, he's kind of like a striker brain in a 10 body, which is kind of funny to watch, but dangerous too.
Yeah, and you mentioned their back line, their defense structure. It's been a lot better in recent games. 2 clean sheets in a row. So the Whitecaps will need that killer instinct, especially early, because they seem to, again, get on the front foot early this season, and they'll be at home. So that will be a bonus. And again, another big game for them to make up some ground in the Western Conference, which is only going to get wilder. But again, maintain that defensive structure. Try, just to not give Austin that space and those shooting lanes, to prevent them from being that dynamic attacking team that they are. And it's also worth mentioning that Saturday will be the 50th anniversary match for the Whitecaps at BC Place, and there'll be a lot of festivities before the match and I guess throughout. And you saw on their socials the bus and SkyTrain around Vancouver all decked out in gold to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the Whitecaps and this match on Saturday.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet. I haven't taken the SkyTrain much as of late, but I'll try to see if I can spot that or the bus. I thought that was pretty cool, and I definitely know. Yeah, the Whitecaps are planning lots. I imagine they'll wear the blue kit at home because I know it's been mostly rocking the white as of late. So it'll be cool to see that blue kit in action again. It's a nice one, and yeah, it'll be a special moment, of course, right? Like there aren't many teams in North America that have had the chance to be around for 50 years. It's pretty cool that the Whitecaps have this opportunity, that they've been able to celebrate it with the kit and more. I imagine we'll see some cool alumni make it out. I guess all you can say from the Whitecaps perspective, hopefully they can make the most of the occasion and send everyone home happy, because I imagine it'll be another strong crowd. And well, the next home game after that is Miami, right? So you want the vibes to be good heading into whatever the heck of a spectacle, chaos, pick your term. Well, that Miami match will end up being later that month.
Yeah, and then it's also worth mentioning, Messi won't play on turf. Well, he did last week against New England, and he scored 2 goals. So there's that. But back to the Austin game, Yeah, I mean $5 drinks, live music before the game, $29 upper bowl ticket, pretty good deal if I say so myself. So if you can make it to BC Place this weekend, come on out, cheer on the Whitecaps, and hopefully they can get another win. Because I'll be there, Nathan will be there, of course you will be there in our usual seats in the press box.
I say can't wait. Should be a good one. It'll be nice to be back. Nice to enjoy the festivities. Hopefully it's nice out. Because yeah, I mean, look, it's a
Roof's
good
open.
sporting event, right? I want to go to a Canucks game as much as anyone else with the playoffs, but $400 tickets, hey, you can go enjoy some good top of the West soccer for $30. That ain't the worst deal in the
Yeah,
world.
yeah, it ain't the worst deal in the world as well. So yeah, that's the Whitecaps. We'll move on from them and CPL action for the third week this season. And didn't get to see these games, as a whole, but I got to see bits and pieces. So obviously, Alex, you're more of an expert on the CPL than I am, and we'll just go over the little roundup over this weekend's action. Cavalry and Pacific draw 0-0. I did watch a bit of this game while I was watching the Canucks Predators game. And from what I've seen, like Pacific this season have been a really good defensive team.
Yeah, I was on social for that one. It was 0-0 game. It was KG. Let's just say it was one where it was a bit more defensive, but Pacific, yeah, they're rock solid. It's a big credit to them as a team. It's credit to head coach James Merriman. It's credit to their group. They lost Amir Didic. She was a huge part of their defensive ethos. They also lost Manny Aparicio, who, yeah, he's a bit more of an attacking name, but the work he puts in his press off the ball was such a huge asset. And they've looked just fine. Ali Indom's been a great signing. They've asked a lot of their youngsters. This week was Eric Lajeunesse, and past week's been Paul Amadume, getting them U21 minutes, but also putting in top defensive performances alongside Thomas Merjigir. They've been really solid as a team. They've been playing in a bit more of an old school 4-4-2 with two proper strikers up front, and that's frustrated teams because they've been taking away space. They've been very organized. They move together as a team. They know when to press, and I think it's just a credit to the system. I mean, 3 games, 0 goals against. That's a manager's dream, and thanks to that, they're able to get points. When you don't concede goals, you're guaranteed to get points, right? And in this game, they get one on the road. They probably could have won too, right? They're generating chances at the other end. They just haven't fully clicked to their potential, and James Merriman continues to stress that. But defensively, when you're giving yourself a chance, let's say you end up with 7 points from 9, and that bodes well heading into the Canadian Championship this week. Obviously, they're facing a TSS Rovers side that likes to upset, that will be looking for an upset. But if this Pacific team is going to go on a cup run or do well in the league, that defensive improvement is a good sign.
Yeah, like just a very defensively sound team from what I've seen. And then Forge beating Valor with a stoppage time winner. Like Valor, I don't think they even have a win this season yet.
Yeah, it's unlucky for Valor because they played very well and probably could have won the game. But Chris Kalongo in Forge's goal, the youngster, the Tristan Henry replacement was excellent. Made 3 Hollywood level saves, including 2 in like a 1-minute sequence in the second half. Like one wild kick save. Abdou Samake was right on top of him. There's another beautiful header save that he tipped over the bar, I think it was. That was huge. But yeah, this Forge team is dangerous, and it's been impressive to see it all come together, because it usually feels like for Forge it takes a little time to gel. But I don't know if it was because they had Champions Cup this year. I don't know if it was just they made the right mix of new signings and signings that are and players that have stuck around. I mean, this is the first year they ever won on opening day, so that was a huge progress for them. But they're the only the 4th team to win 3 games to start a CPL season, and if they win this weekend, they're only the 2nd to win 4 straight to start a year. It's been clicking, that attack. Benny Banga, what a signing he was last year. Tristan Borges is playing his best soccer ever, and that's saying something for a former MVP. David Chouanier is there. Taron Campbell hasn't even scored yet. He hasn't figured out a way to mesh in, and that's someone who's the all-time leading scorer of the league. So once he gets in with that front 3, or that 3 underneath, it can become a dangerous front 4. Forge is ticking at all boxes at both ends too. They're doing a job defensively, and of course, it helps to have Kalongo in goal. So it's dangerous to see, because this Forge team always feels like a threat to win the title, and when they're playing like this, you see why.
Yeah, I mean, Forge have been like for years now one of the best sides in the CPL, and they're showing their quality. And speaking of good sides, Atletico Ottawa also showed again why they're a contender with a 3-1 win over Halifax Wanderers.
Yeah, that was the game I was on for CPL this week, so I was keeping a close eye, and yeah, it was a good matchup. Atletico Ottawa, they're a deep, talented team. They're still figuring things out, of course, as a group. Meanwhile, Halifax off to a slow start, but they're a very good team. One that it should reasonably be pushing for title at the end of the year, pushing for playoffs at the very least. But for both teams, it was kind of a continuation of the start of the year. For Halifax, they've been slumping. They pick up an early red card that kind of slowed them down. And meanwhile, Ottawa, they have this way of turning it up. It's kind of funny in the sense that Ottawa has 7 points from 9 games that you look, or not 9 games, 9 out of 9 points. You look at the 3 games, they haven't actually played a whole, the best of soccer over 3 games. What they've done so well is they manage the moments, and kind of they talked about it after the game in the press conferences, being like, yeah, we have guys who they just know how to turn it on. If it's a moment, it's 35th minute 0-0 game, or when they're trailing or whatever, they're like, all right, let's do this. And that's a credit to the roster. Signing guys like Aparicio is a winner. Amir Didic, one of the best center backs in the league. You look across the board, they have guys who know how to turn it up in big moments, and that's going to be their secret. Because when they figure things out overall, tactically, their system, their best lineup, they're going to be a dangerous team. But the fact they have these guys who just know how to step up even when the chips are down, that's always the most dangerous thing for a side.
Yeah, and their team, I remember watching their first game against York. They didn't start well, but they ended up winning in the second half because they just capitalized on their opportunities.
That's all you need to do. That's they don't give out awards for the team that played the best soccer over 28 games, right? Who had the best chances, the best, all the stats. As much as of course, I love the stats, so I wouldn't say no to that. But no, at the end of the day, you also have to manage your moments, and that's what Ottawa is doing right now. They're getting those moments, and if they can combine that with consistent play, they're going to be a title threat as well.
Yeah, and closer to home, Vancouver FC started off their season pretty good, but including the Canadian Championship, 2 straight losses on the road, and kind of back to earth for Vancouver with a 3-0 loss away to York United.
Yeah, I guess it was a bit of a come down, I guess, for them, but I still think they're positive signs from Vancouver. What we're seeing is on the attack that at their best, it can be fun, as you saw against Valor and Halifax when it's clicking, but also it'll still take time for them to fully put it together. That was kind of evident in the last 2 games. They didn't, of course, didn't score in either of them. And then the defense been so solid to start the year. I think in this game was a bit of a step back, but that happens. I think credit to York for kind of exposing the areas where Vancouver FC can be hurt. It's just unfortunate for Vancouver. This kind of came at the worst time, especially that Cavalry game, because I know how much they want to win and play the Whitecaps, which would have been a fascinating spectacle for many reasons. But I guess it's what this stretch shows is what they can be at their best, and that's going to be a team that wants to score goals, make the playoffs, play fun soccer, but also to show that that process won't be a snap of the fingers, boom, top team in the CPL. They'll take learning lessons, and I think this loss to York, a good York team, a York team that's strange because when York wants, they can be one of the best teams in the league, but also when York wants, they can be one of the worst. In this game, they chose to be one of the best, and they showed their quality. In Vancouver, obviously learned some lessons for it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of promise with this Vancouver side, I think, especially since they have a lot of young talent. And this year was always going to be, a year of growth. And right now, I think it's just growing pains for Vancouver. And we haven't seen the best of them yet.
And I think it'll come. I think that attack.
It'll come, yeah.
That attack will do its job. Alejandro Diaz, Moses Dyer, Gabriel Batar, Mickey Kentav, Ben Fisk. That attack's quality. And you saw it in the first 2 games. With more reps, the chemistry will grow. You'll see a bit more of those patterns. You can already just tell naturally that some of those guys play off each other so well. So as long as they keep solid defensively, which I think they will, this game was a bit of a aberration. York really did well to punish them in the cutbacks, particularly. That offense will figure things out. And hey, I think this is a team that should be pushing for the playoffs. So if they can just continue to pick up points at home and maybe start turning some road losses into road draws and even wins, I think Vancouver will be all right.
Yep, and of course CPL continues as always this weekend, and just gonna bring up the schedule here. So Vancouver will be in Calgary to play Cavalry. Pacific's hosting York. Letico, Ottawa's hosting Valor, and Forge is hosting the Halifax Wanderers. So it should be another good weekend of CPL action.
Yeah, excited for this one. Vancouver gets a chance at revenge at Cavalry after the Can Champ loss. I'm sure that will mean something. Meanwhile, you got teams like Halifax looking for that first win. Then they're going to be playing a Forge team that they had success with last year. That'll be something worth watching. Pacific, they end up returning home. That's obviously going to be something to keep an eye on. It'll be an interesting slate of games. So excited to tune in.
Yep, and that's the CPL. So moving on to some Canada stuff. Latest rumor going around: Derek Cornelius, former Whitecaps center back, now playing with Malmo in Sweden, I believe. And Dutch sources have pretty much reported that he's been linked to the two big clubs in the Netherlands, Ajax and Feyenoord.
That's very no. That rumor was good for Cornelius, and it's a good sign because he's been off to a heater to start the year. For those who haven't been following Malma, I think they're up to now 6 wins, if I'm not mistaken, and from 6 games to start the year in Swedish or in the Allsvenskan. They're also in the final of the Swedish Cup, which actually goes this Wednesday. If you want to tune in, Derek Cornelius a chance to win, I think, a second trophy for the club, the Svenska Cupen. And Cornelius has been a rock. He has I think, 2 league goals. He's been a force for them defensively. His defensive numbers are ridiculous. He's averaging something like 75% of his aerial wins. He's winning 80% of his duels. He's averaging like 7 interceptions per game, 12 recoveries. Like, he's just been a monster for them. And this is fitting because literally about a week ago, I was just writing a quick note about Cornelius, just saying like he's been playing really well. Like, Malmo have a history. I think over the last 5 years, I checked, they've sold 3 players to the French league, a player to the Dutch league, a player to England, to the Premier League straight up, a player, I think, to the Bundesliga. Like, I'm like, look, Cornelius keeps playing like this, interest will come. So I find it kind of fitting that in a week later, Ajax and Feyenoord are linked because, look, if Cornelius keeps up playing at this level for Malmo, teams will center back at 26. Heading into his second year, hopefully he can keep this up because I think would be fantastic for him, would be fantastic for the national team to have a player like of his caliber at center back playing for an Ajax or Feyenoord would be incredible, right?
Yeah, that would be huge. Just playing for one of the big dogs in the Dutch league. But this is just a rumor for now, and we'll see if there's fire with the smoke. And speaking of Canadians looking to move, we've talked endlessly on this show about Jonathan David leaving Lille, and he's just been tearing it up with Lille. He's scored 20 goals now at least, and I think early in the season he kind of had a slow start, but you could tell the guy's just having a lot of confidence.
Yeah, it's his best season yet, in my opinion. I think he hasn't scored as much as he did last year, but last year I think he ended up finishing with around 24. 10 of them were penalties, right? This year,
Right.
he has 17 goals and 15 of them are non-penalties. Like, he's already bested his total from last year in just non-penalty goals, which I think is a good sign because, of course, you get a few penalties, that total can go right up. And after the slow start, the consistency he's found in his game has been remarkable. Like, since November, he hasn't really gone on a slump. He's just been every few games, he's getting a goal, getting it or two. He had a good, decent enough showing in Conference League, although they unfortunately fell to Aston Villa there in the quarterfinals. He wasn't able to get a goal there, which would have been huge with all the eyeballs that would have been on him in a game like that. But no, this is perfect for David because this is his best season yet, and this is the best time to have your best season yet. Why? His contract's up in 2025. So, this summer, I know it's been the joke in Canadian soccer, is David actually going to leave for 3 years? It's been, oh, will he leave? Will he leave Lille? They won the title. Will he leave? Inter Milan wants him. Premier League, yada, yada, yada. It never happened. but this is the summer for it. Why? That contract's up in 2025. So if Lille want anything for him, they have to sell him this year. As soon as next January, he can start negotiating to leave on a free, which would obviously that's not what Lille wants. They've sold the guys like Oshiman, Nicolas Pepe over the year, Jonathan Bamba, Mike Magnan. They're a selling club. They'll want money for him. So this is the time for him to cash in. And the fact that he's had his best year, fourth straight year with 10 plus goals in Ligue 1, teams will want him at the right price. And hopefully he can get that dream move that I know he wants, and that will help him take another step as a player.
Yeah, and there's been reports that Lille's wanting at least 50 million euros for him. He's been linked to the Premier League and to Serie A, like AC Milan, Inter Milan, Napoli even. That's also been a big name that's been linked to him, and I really think his skill set really suits Serie A, and I think he'd thrive there. But it'll be interesting to see where he actually ends up going.
Well, that's it. I like the Serie A show just because, again, he likes to get on the ball. He likes touches. He plays. He's not your true nine in a sense, and I think Serie A will suit him in the sense because Premier League, of course, time and space can sometimes be a premium for strikers. I think over the last 5 years, only once has a Premier League striker been the top scorer of the top 5 leagues. That was Holland last year. It's typically not the most friendly league for strikers. Serie A could be a good spot for him to get his goals, but also still play his way of getting touches and whatnot. In the Premier League, he'd have to adapt his game a bit, which, hey, isn't the worst thing as a striker to change your game and add different layers to it. But yeah, I agree. In terms of fit, he would look great on like an AC Milan, for example. And that, with Giroud leaving, like imagine him linking up with the Leao, Pulisic, all those guys. I think he could really be a threat there.
Yeah, I think that's where I'd pick where he'd go, AC Milan. And yeah, I think the rumors are also picking up for the men's team's next manager. Karanka, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer have apparently been interviewed. Jesse Marsch was on the list, but he's now being reported he's the front runner to replace Klinsmann for the South Korea job. But it looks like the search is narrowing down, and hopefully we get some news in the next few weeks.
It's crunch time for that job, right? If you want someone before Copa America, you ideally want them hired before the June window when they go play Netherlands and France, and that's like what, June 6th. Ideally, you'd want them maybe hired in May so they have time to at least shake everyone's hand, meet the people, call some of the players. You don't want them to just be like, "Oh, you're hired on June 5th. All right, June 6th, go coach. Go coach against the Netherlands." Nice start to the job. So it's been good to see the interviews, see that process start. Some interesting names linked, like someone like Solskjaer. That is someone who has a second place finish or third place finish in the Premier League on his resume. It's not nothing to turn your nose up at. Karanka, Paul Clement, guys who've got experience as assistants for Real Madrid under Ancelotti, Mourinho. Impressive resume there. Jesse Marsch, someone who's coached in the Bundesliga and the Premier League, but is also, knows the North American game, having been in MLS on different stints with the Red Bulls and, Montreal Impact at the time. I think it's good to see the progress. And yeah, I'll be interested to see who the favored candidate ends up being, because it seems like Marsch has been the favorite, but then this Korean route news comes out. You kind of course, there's of multiple minds you can be, right? Like, is Marsch linked to Korea? Is that his agent trying to drive up leverage so that one of the two parties pays him more between Korea and Canada? Is that Marsch using Canada's leverage for the Korea job? Is Marsch using Korea leverage for the Canada job? Who knows, right? It's something where the reports are interesting. But then after Marsch, Paul Clement was someone that the Athletic reported that Canada's pretty high on. Then, of course, you got Bobby Smyrniotis and Tommy Wheeldon Jr. in the mix. The CPL coaches, might they be candidates to be assistants? Might they get the job straight up? It's good to see that there's a short list of at least 6 names, and I imagine there may be even more that we're not even hearing about, because this is the timeline you want. Hopefully they just get the right guy in charge for mid-May so that they can tackle this huge June window with the chance to start building for 2026.
Yeah, we got Copa America coming up, and those friendlies against Netherlands and France. Like, Marsch is probably the name I'd pick. I mean, this is a guy that worked his way up from New York Red Bulls, RB Leipzig. Yeah, it didn't work out at Leeds, but at least he was given a crack. Plays decent system, and I don't know. We'll see if the South Korea rumors are um, smoke instead of fire, or who knows what. But I mean, at least there are some good names on here. I know some might scoff at the Solskjaer rumor, but let's not forget second and third with not the greatest Manchester United team. And obviously, it didn't end well, but he's a manager. I think at Man United, it really wasn't. He really wasn't at fault, but of course, someone had to take a fall at Man United. And yeah, hopefully this gets settled by mid-May, and that's I think should be the deadline because you don't want the manager just to come in and say, "All right, I'm your new coach. Let's go play a game against Argentina." Because yeah, that's
I
just not ideal. And let's talk about a bit of the women here. Vanessa Gilles and Lyon are off to the Women's Champions League final. Unfortunately for Ashley Lawrence and Khadijah Buchanan, as their Chelsea was eliminated by Barcelona despite some refereeing controversy. And it looks like Gilles is the only Canadian woman in Europe that can play for European silverware.
Yeah, I would say first off, commiserations to your Chelsea, of course, because that was just an unfortunate game for them. Like Chelsea,
Yeah,
of course, up 1-0. They beat Barcelona, the first team to beat Barcelona away in like 5 years, which is such an impressive feat. It felt like heading into home, a sold out Stamford Bridge. The occasion was there, and it wasn't the game for them. They missed a bunch of chances. They were pushing though at least. Then the red card comes, such a questionable red card. Kadisha Buchanan on
yeah,
a yellow. Like
it's just soft to me.
as a second yellow, like she barely even clipped. The Barcelona player ends up going down, makes a meal. The yellow gets put out. That's one thing I low key don't like. Is that you can review red cards, but you can't review second yellows because it's the end of the day, it's a red card, right? Like it's just as
Right.
important. It's a sending off that alters the game. I've never quite understood that 'cause second yellows are pretty rare, anyways. Like it's not like they're more like yeah, they're more frequent than straight red cards, but there's no reason why they can't be reviewed. Unfortunately, not much Chelsea could do. They go down to 10. They give away a penalty. It was just an unfortunate night. Yep. I think credit also has to be given to Barcelona. They're a quality team. They
Just
made the most of
quality sign, yeah.
Chelsea's mistakes, like Bonmati. That's not someone you want to give any space in any capacity. Someone like Para Wadlow, such what a winger, what a player that is. Like she's so good. Uh, that Barca team's solid, so it's going to be interesting to see how they fare in the final. But hey, cool that at least one Canadian will be there. Vanessa Gilles and Lyon, quite the comeback from leg one because they were down 2-0 in leg one. They ended up winning it 3-2, and then they just got the job done again in leg two, win 2-1 to win 5-0 in aggregate. And yeah, hopefully Gilles starts because they've been kind of rotating their center backs. Gilles didn't start leg one, came off the bench, and she started and went 90 in leg two. Because they've got, of course, Wendy Renard and they've got Mbok Bathi, who's two great center backs. But I think the kind of preferred pair in big European games has been Renard and Gilles. So hopefully we see it in a final because Gilles been there in those pressure situations before for Canada, played in an Olympic final, but at club level, she hasn't always had that chance to play in these sorts of big games. Winning a title like this would be huge for her career to join. Of course, Kadisha Buchanan as the only other Canadian women's player to do so, I think would be a great story. So something to keep an eye on May 25th when Lyon take on the mighty Barcelona side in a battle of the two best women's teams over the last 15 years.
Yep.
Lyon, I think I think it's 8 titles. Barcelona, of course, have won a pair in the last few years. So that should be a heck of a battle.
Yeah, it should be a good game. And again, not the first time Chelsea were screwed against Barcelona by a referee. At least this referee wasn't Pauled. But we'll wrap things up here as I think we're about the hour mark. So I'll give the floor to you, Alex. Just quickly wrap up. Like, what's up? What's next for you with the things you're doing?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just mostly plugging away. Got Canadian Championship this week, so excited to head out to to the island and tuck into some Vancouver or some Pacific FC, sorry, against the TSS Rovers. Can Rovers get a cup set? Can Pacific continue to be good in the Canadian Championship? Excited for that. Otherwise, of course, got some MLS, CPL, League One BC's back, trying to tuck into all of that as possible for one soccer, CPL, etc. So, hey, just enjoying as much local footy as I can, and taking things 1 week at a time. So this week it's Pacific, and then of course I'll see you at Whitecaps on Saturday, which should be a beauty.
Yeah, and besides football, watching it, like, what do you like to do?
Yeah, I mean, these days mostly just join the Canucks playoff run. Hey, I've been
Yep.
watching them since I was 6, so I I always realized when I was like when Lindholm scored the other day and I jumped off the couch. I'm like, yeah, okay, I still I still got that Canucks fandom in me. Of course, I'm watching so much soccer for work that you just kind of get used to watch it. It has been nice to just tuck into this Canucks run purely as a fan, purely enjoying it. And otherwise, just enjoying Vancouver and trying to get out my bike more with the weather starting to get nice. Enjoy that. So hey, if you see me around on my bike,
Yeah,
make
give
sure
him a
to
wave. Yeah, and yeah, thanks for coming on, man. Alex, one of the busiest guys covering Canadian soccer, and one of the best to do it, and did a good job filling in for Nathan. And obviously, Nathan will be back this week. And don't know if I mentioned this already, but the podcast, like the audio of this podcast, will be out Wednesday since I am busy pretty much the rest of the day today, Tuesday. So we've gone live on the Terminal City FC Twitter and Area 51 Sports Network social channels. So if you were watching the live, hopefully it didn't have any issues. Like my screen's frozen right now, but it's working. So um, hope you bared with us and hope you enjoyed it. And Alex, thanks for coming on.
Hey, my pleasure, Josh. Always great to come on and chat. And hey, unfortunately, Nathan wasn't here to join us, but hope all is well with his move, and we'll chat again soon. And my pleasure. Always good to hop on.
Yeah, always good to talk soccer with you. And I'll see you on Saturday with Nathan at BC Place. So that concludes this week's episode. Peace out.